guys, and welcome back to my channel where we spill tea left, right, and everywhere in between. Since we did a fairly in-depth coverage of Andrew Tate back in his heyday, like 3 weeks ago, we figured the Hot Tea channel should dive in and talk about the end of that era and everything that's happened so far. Buckle in, we're going to be talking about the exile of Andrew Tate. So everybody and their mother knows who Andrew Tate is at this point, and while many are disgusted by the takes that he spews, many others actually side with Tate and see truths behind his arguably ludicrous and offensive statements that are clipped and shared to social media. Well, regardless of your opinion on Andrew Tate, it is certain that he held the attention of the internet for a while, but that has now pretty much come to an end with his recent ban from Instagram, YouTube, TikTok, basically everywhere. This is not Andrew Tate's first experience with being banned off of social media, having been banned from Twitter back in 2017, but he has also stated multiple times that he couldn't care less about that.
Cancel me! I do not care! I don't care! I exist outside of the matrix! No one can damage me! Doesn't matter. I don't even have a fucking account. What are you gonna do, ban me? I don't even have an account.
The Twitter ban apparently happened due to a statement Andrew allegedly made around this time of the Me Too movement, saying that SA victims should, quote, bear some of the responsibility. Over the years, beside gaining attention, both negative and positive online, Andrew also accumulated quite the following, boasting about 4.7 million followers on Instagram, along with over 700,000 subscribers on YouTube, and around 100,000 subscribers to his Hustlers Academy website. Andrew utilized his following online to grow his company, Hustlers Academy, by using an affiliate system where people would earn off of signups by reusing and sharing Andrew's content. Pretty smart, considering that Andrew Tate's videos always get a lot of attention, regardless of whether that attention is in favor of or against the statements that he would make.
If you show a woman how to make $1,000 in an hour, she'll think, I can work 2 hours a week. If you show a man how to make $1,000 in an hour, he thinks I can make $18,000 a day.
What Andrew Tate did was honestly comparable to what Belle Delphine did to grow a following. Now, bear with me when I say that, as it might sound outrageous, but let's look at it side by side. Belle Delphine understood the internet and understood that there are plenty of pretty girls in her industry, so she figured out how to get more attention and stand out. Andrew Tate understands that these men's self-help at the expense of objectifying women kind of classes are a dime a dozen, so he knew that he had to do something bigger to gain more attention to his product. Now, who knows how seriously Andrew Tate takes the things that he says. He could very well fully believe the ridiculous things that he claims about women, and likely he does, but that's what got his name out there, and that's what made him money. So he went further and further, and because of his pushing, his presence on some of the biggest social media platforms is no longer. Along with that, the affiliate program that he has set up has also been shut down. So everyone out there sharing and resharing anything and everything to do with Tate for a profit is over. While I can't seem to find the exact video or post that solidified the ban decision by the companies, a Meta spokesperson said that he violated their policies. And one can only presume that this is because what he has said about women can be considered hate speech. According to an article on ABC News, a TikTok rep said, "Misogyny is a hateful ideology that is not tolerated on TikTok. Our investigation into this content is ongoing as we continue to remove violative accounts and videos and pursue measures to strengthen our enforcement, including our detection models against this type of content." And YouTube had also something similar to say, stating, "We terminated channels associated with Andrew Tate for multiple violations of our community guidelines and terms of service, including our hate speech policy. If a channel is terminated, the uploader is unable to use, own, or create any other YouTube channels." There are so many opinions on the ban and deplatforming of Andrew Tate, and a common thread among Tate supporters is that censorship is wrong. But something that I think people need to understand is that while in the States there is freedom of speech, hate speech is not acceptable on social media platforms. Interestingly though, hate speech is not a legal term in the US, and the Supreme Court has apparently repeatedly ruled most of what would qualify as hate speech in other Western countries is legally protected free speech under the First Amendment. What's more, if a platform decides that someone has somehow breached their terms of service that are applied to everyone, anyone, then it is within their rights to remove said individual. So whether or not you agree or disagree with Instagram or YouTube or TikTok removing Andrew Tate, it really doesn't matter, as the terms of service is what the terms of service is, and social media is not a right, it's a privilege, right? They are companies, they have rules, and in the grand scheme of things, it's not the end-all be-all. For example, Donald Trump was also banned from basically all social media, so he went and created his own platform, Truth Social, where he is free to say what he wants. Similarly, Alex Jones was also removed from the major platforms. This is not taking away your right to speak your opinions, it's taking away your access to that platform with that speech. Well, we are actually going to unpack that and possibly bring your attention to some viewpoints and information that possibly you haven't seen in full before. Anyway, Andrew released what he called a final message and used Aiden Ross as a vessel for this, but let's talk about that in a second. As for the effect on young boys and men, many might say that there are no negative impacts due to Andrew Tate's speeches, but multiple teachers have come forward and said that the influence of Andrew Tate on their students has become evident with the remarks that they make, as well as their behavior towards female students.
I had a boy today, 11, turn to a girl and tell her that she's fat, women need to be thin, she sits at home and she eats all day, and that she's like every other girl in the world, and that she uses men to get money, and at least he's a hardworking man and he works for his money. They're 11.
Another teacher took to Reddit to post her story in regards to the negative effects that young boys are having from watching Andrew Tate's content. She wrote that she's had to speak with 6 families since the start of this school year, literally barely a month in, due to their sons refusing to read their educational material if it was written by a female author. These boys were mirroring things that Tate has said, saying that women are inferior to men and should only be housewives. I think something important to mention here is something that is kind of you guys, on the side of Andrew Tate's defenders and actually Andrew Tate himself. A go-to defense for this guy is that clips are taken from different videos and then shared without context. So for example, people often repeat that Andrew Tate moved to Romania because he wanted to get away with R-word, and that's not exactly what he said. He more says that he moved to Romania because of corruption and he wants to be somewhere where he can join in on it. Not exactly much better, but he isn't saying that he wants to get away with R-wording, right? Now, I'm sure some will come for me for explaining that, but something we really need to remember is when you're trying to have this conversation about Andrew Tate and the effect that he has, we have to be careful with using the correct information. Because one fact out of place or one quote taken out of context can make the entire argument against him crumble, because that is how these people are. There is plenty of evidence to back up the reasoning behind Andrew Tate being a problem, so we should veer away from fabrication so the argument is solid. Make sense? So back to my point, yes, there are a lot of clips that are taken out of context, but remember why those clips got shared. Because Andrew Tate set up an affiliation system where people would make money off of these clips. So it still all leads back to him. And oftentimes, the words are still said regardless of the context. And we will cover more about the who's responsible for this conversation here shortly, actually using Andrew's own words for this. And in case you need a refresher on some of the things that he said that are entirely offensive, problematic, and frankly dangerous, here you go.
Have you ever seen a woman try and do anything competently? Slap the machete, slap her in her face, one hand, boom in her face, and then grip her up by the neck. Like, shut up, bitch! That's how it goes. Slap, slap, grab, choke, shut up, bitch, sex.
And some additional insight to how he views himself, he was quoted once saying, "I super care so much. I can't even put in human words how much I care. I am a master of rhetoric. I have a grasp of the English language, which is nearly unparalleled on the internet. I have the ability to make my ideas translate through space-time into minds of other men, but I cannot describe in words how much I don't like and can't handle being a misogynist." An interesting point to consider is that Andrew's notoriety outshines his actual online footprint. While 4 million plus followers on Instagram and almost 750,000 subs on YouTube is nothing to sniff at, these numbers are just a fraction of what is considered a massive influencer or content creator. If you look at other controversial characters online like James Charles, who has 24 million subs and 22 million Instagram followers, or Jake Paul, Andrew Tate isn't coming close to that. So the idea that someone with such a smaller following following technically has amassed such a widespread influence among so many people is certainly interesting to say the least. Tate also made an appearance on Tucker Carlson, spinning what he said in the past into something quite different.
I think that men's issues are largely overlooked. The people in charge of the world pretend to care, but when somebody who's championing men's issues like myself comes forward, I'm silenced. And I basically just say to men, look, it's a very hard life. Don't tolerate low quality people, which means don't tolerate men who just smoke drugs and play video games. By extension, don't tolerate women or girlfriends who are disloyal or dishonest.
Well, much as I have, of course, not watched every piece of content ever put out there by Andrew Tate, I can say that I have seen a lot. Before we report on these things, we make sure to do our research so we just aren't going in blind. And out of all of the videos out there that we've studied and searched for, never once have we experienced Tate leading with the avoidance of supposed low-quality men when giving advice to his followers. Now, as he says, things are clipped and shown out of proportion. But exactly what is the context of this?
I sat there and I thought, how are women allowed to drive?
Andrew reiterates this point of him not just saying to be wary of low-quality women, but rather low-quality people in his final message as well. He explains that the message behind what he's saying there is that you should not associate with people like drug abusers, and what's more, the gender has nothing to do with it. But the opinion of women not driving or flying planes is a problematic and misogynistic mind frame. I don't want to hear that's my opinion, as I feel that is a cop-out on this topic. Opinions are, of course, something everyone can have and should have, but you can't in one breath say that people accuse you of being misogynistic because they don't listen to the full clip, then spew this hateful bullshit and tie it with it's my opinion, so there's no opportunity for discussion.
This is the first time someone has experienced this level of ban.
Well, they have, and him saying that is just another example of Andrew not only living in this apparent matrix, but straight up just not living on planet Earth. Listen to the way that he describes the life of a, quote, normal man with a normal job. Pay close attention.
You're a normal man with a normal job. You don't really exist in the online world. It's very difficult to get followers. Nobody replies to your DMs. You don't really matter. You don't have access to the sexual marketplace. It's very difficult for you to even get any kind of recognition.
Andrew Tate has once said that he holds an understanding of the English language that is unmatched by anyone on the internet. So taking that into account, one would presume that his quick mind carefully and skillfully selects the words that he wants to say before his mouth speaks them. So briefly, let's deconstruct that sentence, particularly the part where he says sexual marketplace. The Oxford Dictionary defines marketplace as the arena of competitive or commercial dealings, the world of trade. So referring to the dating world as a sexual marketplace only solidifies further the fact that Andrew Tate sees women as objects and sex as something that is owed. And therein lies the issue with him, and just another example of how his influence on people, specifically young men, is a dangerous one.
Men are so depressed just because they feel invisible. Women expect me to be strong and smart and funny and interesting with a nice apartment and a fast car and tall and well-connected and funny, and it's just too much for them to handle. And the social pressure on men is absolutely immense. And I was championing their issues.
Meanwhile, women are expected, in his traditional views, to be thin, pretty, quiet, non-confrontational, childbearing beings that forget any form of career, especially if it's in a field deemed more appropriate for men, all the while remembering that her body belongs to her husband, and while she can wait at home for him and remain faithful, it's perfectly fine for him to run off into the night and have physical relations with other women, and that's acceptable. The angle that he's now taking, claiming to pioneer for men's issues, is something that we should have seen coming here. Because an out for him is that if you disagree, you don't care about men's problems. And he says just that in regards to his current ban from these social media platforms. He's saying that they pretend to care about men's issues, but have now banned the apparent biggest advocate for said issues. There is a conversation as well as to consider that might not be a favorable one, but something that I think is important to mention within this segment, that we live in a society, a patriarchy rather, that caters to men inherently. So with that, men's issues are inherently non-issues. But before you freak out, it can also be said that because of this type of society, these men's issue exists because the patriarchy oppresses him with toxic masculinity, which I believe might just be what Andrew is trying to say he pioneers for. But with that, the conversation could be more directed towards phasing out the men don't cry and man up type of rhetoric and replacing it with healthy emotional support for men. And unfortunately, should this be Andrew's intentions behind everything that he's said and done, it has been lost. And this might be a statement that is controversial in itself, but I do agree with Andrew when he says that men and boys listen to him because he has a lifestyle that is sought after. We'll develop a little bit more of that in just a second though. I would like to include that men's issues are real and and male depression is absolutely not something to ignore. But let's not look at Andrew Tate as a martyr for that, because he's simply not. This attitude is a fresh one coming from him, and I can't help but think that it's because he's lost his power and influence and is now grasping at straws. He has been spewing offenses for ages now, and because he has been removed from where he was experiencing popularity, he's now attempting to paint it with the disguise of mental health champion. I will also include here that Andrew explains the human trafficking allegation, and he details that he was swatted and that there were 0 people in his home being kept against their will. There was no arrest, there was no charge, he was not a suspect. So before Taint fans try to flood the comments again, we research what we cover and we maintain a neutral opinion until it's time to not maintain a neutral opinion. Let's continue. Onto the final message, which, let's be honest, is an incredibly dramatic title. Cut to me just titling this video literally The Exile of Andrew Tate.
So I'm very, very happy that my life has been difficult, because it's impossible to become a capable man or a man of my capability without struggling with facing serious adversities, without trying to overcome often insurmountable odds.
Andrew talks about how he was bullied in school and his father was one to say you should defend yourself. He says that you can't always run to someone for help and sometimes you have to handle things on your own. With that, Andrew tells a story about how he defended himself from some bullies with a lunchbox while he was still in school in America. He later moved to the UK and says that he was bullied a bit for being the American kid, but eventually people no longer messed with him.
And they were very respectful of me. And I had a very positive experience from then on out in school by simply standing up for myself, because this is how I was taught to act.
Andrew basically says that he cannot be affected by the things that people say about him and the false narrative people have about him because he emotionally does not care. He explains that he never thought to correct any of these false things that were said about him because he and God knew the truth.
I now understand that that's wrong, because even though I've done nothing wrong, the public consciousness has been polluted to a point where narratives are being purported which are absolutely and utterly false. And it's having a genuine negative impact on the people who I care about.
Andrew maintains that the internet and people that look at him disfavorably do so by perpetuating false information and reporting it to the masses.
What they are interested in is finding some lie that they can latch onto and accelerating that lie on as much as possible via their platforms to try and paint a negative picture of you because they don't like you.
He says that people mask their hatred of him by claiming that they care about women, but they also don't do anything for women. Andrew says that these, quote, haters just use women's issues as an excuse and don't donate to women's charities or do anything near the amounts that he does for women. So basically he's saying that everyone has it wrong, and while the internet and world view him as a misogynist, he reckons he is quite the opposite. And the music in the back means that he's telling the truth, you guys. Andrew continues that there isn't a creator alive online that has a 100% approval rate, and that no matter what you say online, there will be people that disagree with you, of course. He does say that he does not like it when his, quote, jokes are cut up and re-uploaded without context, and he also doesn't like when there are false legal allegations put against him. But he fully welcomes people to disagree, and even says that when people do disagree, he doesn't shout for their silence because that is not good for the world.
I think that discourse is always going to be the way that we lead ourselves to the truth. And if anybody has anything contrary to say about any of my points of view, I like to hear it. And as long as it's in a respectful and adult manner, I often platform it on my platforms as much as possible.
He reckons that he has changed his point of view in the past when he met with a good debate. In regards to the videos and clips of him saying certain things, he says that there is nothing he can do about someone chopping up something that he has said in a 2-hour video and mashing into a short form TikTok or YouTube short. Oftentimes, the full message behind what he has said is lost. But, you know, I'm going to pull this one out.
But I said that if a woman is going out with a man, she belongs to that man. That's his woman. So she wants to do OnlyFans. She owes him some money because she's his.
I did watch that full video and I did grasp the entire context behind that clip, and there's nothing more than male ownership of females being perpetuated here. So while yes, some clips are taken out of context, there are so many that are just not.
Female self-defense is bullshit. I watched some video on Twitter the other day, some stupid ass hoe. I went to self-defense class, I'm doing this and... Yeah, listen, women can't fight. You're not designed to fight. You're incapable of fighting, and you're incapable of handling genuine violence.
One thing that's interesting during this final video of Andrew's is that he says since he became the most famous person on the planet, he has never had a negative experience with anyone while he's been out in public. He says most people are fans and most are respectful and want to take pictures, and no one has ever yelled at him on the streets.
So the people love me. At the same time, the media is saying I'm hated. It's a very strange disconnect that I've been experiencing. And a lot of that has been purported and accelerated by the fact that people are trying to gain views on their own channels, separate to me, nothing to do with me, by accelerating lies.
He reckons that his ban and the idea that he's dangerous has all come from people just wanting to get clicks and views on their videos about him, regardless of the truth. And he did not attempt to fight this because he was not emotionally affected. And he took it as the nature of the internet. But now he says that that is what has led to his ban and his reputation as a dangerous person, even though he says he has done nothing but save people from depression.
Everyone says, men, you should talk more, talk to us. I try and encourage men to be strong. I say, listen, if you're depressed, you need to get in the gym. A strong body is a strong mind. I encourage people to work hard and try their best. But when I talk and open up and get massive influence and start helping people, they're going to silence me.
Even though Andrew says that a lot of his takes of speeches have been spliced and edited and taken out of context, a huge part of what he preaches is, quote, owning your shit. So he understands that he has a level of responsibility for the things that are being put out there. He also mentions that things change, especially with social media. So a clip that was filmed 5 years ago and now cut up to push this false narrative of him still falls on him as the primary source of blame. And now he doesn't want to backtrack on anything that he said, but he also doesn't want to quit the work that he sees as important. But he just now has to be very careful with how he does it.
The way you can say things in a video that gets 500 views is very different than the way you can say things in a video that gets 500 million views. You have to change your messaging. The more people you reach, the more important it is that people do not take your things out of context. If 0.1% of people misunderstand you on a video that has 50 million views, now you start to affect the world in a negative way.
Not me agreeing on something Andrew Tate has said. Oh my god. Okay, let's continue. Maybe I can find something I disagree with so I don't have to change the title of this video to maybe Andrew Tate isn't that bad.
How can I be a responsible adult, because that's what I am, how can I be a professional, take responsibility for my level of fame, to make sure that nothing can be taken out of context, but still tell my truth and still answer the questions, but construct my sentences in a way where they can't be misrepresented at all.
So I am kind of hearing him say that he understands that the way he has said some things in the past is wrong and he has had a negative effect on young men and he needs to reevaluate how he approaches speaking publicly about the things that he cares about, right? That's what he's saying, right? Now, I was going to pull out a clip here for reference to something terrible that he said, but in keeping up with the nature that we strive for when reporting, I think it's important to hear this part of his final message out.
I now need to once again improve myself and prevent anybody being able to take me out of context. With great influence comes absolutely and utterly great responsibility.
Okay, so I am hearing him correctly, and he is in some form understanding that the seat that he now sits on in ways of influence. But he's not retracting any of the misogynistic comments that he's made. Rather, he's doubling down on everything he said with the idea that he has never said anything misogynistic. Again, cut to the OnlyFans thing.
She belongs to that man. That's his woman. So she wants to do OnlyFans. She owes him some money because she's his.
And again, that cannot just be brushed off as an opinion, which sure, but it's still misogynistic. Are you getting me? At this point of the video, Andrew says that the idea that he has ever been abusive towards women is false and that no female has ever come forward with a story about any abuse from him. He mentions the clip that was leaked of him hitting his then girlfriend in a bedroom setting and explains that both himself and the girl have said that that was a consensual situation and that was intended to remain private. Andrew Tate says he loves women.
I champion women all the time. I say about how they should be protected, how beautiful they are, how much I love my grandmother because of the amount of children she had.
But there lies the issue that I was hoping he would address. Again, the view that women should be housewives and mothers and just beautiful. No mention of any intelligence or anything else of value outside of surface level old-timey female rules. Never mind a career. Careers are not as important as having children, and if you don't have children, you will regret it. That is an Andrew Tate quote. And I watched the video fully in long form with full context, so there can be no excuse made made there that I am just picking things apart and pushing out a false narrative. That is verbatim.
A man has certain roles in society, a woman has certain roles in society, and when we work as a team, when we love each other, society is better as a whole.
Again, therein lies the issue. When you blanket statement an entire group of people based on gender, race, or anything, that then creates a place that excludes anything that does not fit into that mold. And what's more, it kind of minimizes the woman that does want to be a housewife or mother full-time, as it's like, good, that's what you should be doing. He says that he doesn't believe it. It's a controversial viewpoint that women have women's roles and men have men's, and he says that females in his world don't find that controversial either. Let's pull another clip that has this subject matter at the forefront.
Learn in self-defense. When he grabs me by my neck, what I do is I get my fingers in. Yeah, but you know what they didn't teach you in self-defense? When I grab you by your neck and you start annoying me trying to resist, and I just... If you're a woman and you're going to any kind of self-defense class, stop. Because all that's doing is giving you some false confidence bullshit. You're a hoe. You don't know shit.
To think that telling women to totally forget about even learning self-defense because it's pointless and you will always lose is a problem. We don't even have to mention the fact that, of course, women can fight.
When you watch Ronda Rousey fight, especially now, it doesn't just seem like a fight. It seems like some sort of historical event that you have the privilege of watching live.
But to say don't even bother learning because you'll still lose without offering any kind of alternative solution is ignorant as well as disgusting. And again, that clip is not taken out of context and that excuse does not work there. With clips that have been taken out of context, Andrew says that the narrative that they push of him hating women does not benefit him in any way and has actually resulted in death threats to him as well as his family. He agrees with Instagram in regards to these messages should stop, but he doesn't believe that banning him is the way to do that. He reckons that the problem is with the internet and the world, and the problem is so much bigger than him. The issue lies with short format videos and short attention spans tied with people not doing their own research and finding out if what they have just watched is factual or not. And I agree there as well. Interestingly though, Andrew says that he personally never broke any terms of service by Instagram or Meta, that his posts were just pictures of his lifestyle, cars, planes, boats, and his captions were just poetry that he's written.
So the only infringements you would find on Instagram is in my comment section, where thousands of people who were sent by random YouTubers who don't like would come, threaten to kill me, mock my dead father, threaten to kill my brother, threaten to kill my family, threaten to find me. These were the only rule infringements on Instagram. Things written against me.
And that is interesting and honestly brings the question of why was Andrew banned? As we dive further into this video, if we take Andrew on face value with what he's saying here, do you agree that the ban was actually not justified? And if you're hopping in the comments to discuss this, keep it kind. Andrew believes that his redemption arc will be beautiful, and in a few years, people will realize that he is a force of good for the world. He also says that people often say that young men should follow a different role model, but he says no comparable replacement has ever been offered.
They listen to me because of my authority, and my authority comes from my life experiences. I've done things that men respect, and they look up to me. So that's why I can lead them. And I understand my messaging should change in light of the fact that I can be taken out of context. But me being alive on the internet will allow me to lead men in a very positive direction. Banning me and deleting me leaves a black hole.
He does still seem to harp on the out of context thing, and yes, that is a problem, and good for him for thinking that he will come up with a way to not be taken out of context, but his message on women and men still stands. He's not saying that his message will be changed, and I think that might be an issue itself. And what's more, he has not and does not address or comments to the fact that whether or not his intentions were for these clips to be spun out of context. They still were, and he has not used his platform to attract anything and tell young boys probably don't do or say these things. Mind you, as we mentioned, he did say that it is his responsibility, but he still has not made an attempt to try and undo any damage that was already done. Just plans on spreading his message in a way that cannot be misconstrued. Just before the Instagram ban, Andrew posted saying that he supports both men and women, and to show as much he wanted to donate to men's mental health charity as well as a women's charity for victims of domestic abuse. It was a post that he said that he would donate $1 to each charity for each like that it received, so total $2 per like. He calls out to Instagram and says that he would like the final count on those likes so he can keep his word. Andrew's message throughout this portion of the video is that just because he advocates for men's issues, it does not mean that he's against women's issues.
The world is built on the backs of strong men. I'm trying to teach men to be strong again because it makes the men feel happier inside. It solves men's mental health. The last thing I would ever want is for women to be marginalized in the future, for genuine misogyny or sexism to take hold on the planet.
The full definition of misogyny misogyny is a hatred of or aversion to or prejudice against women. The word carries the meaning behavior, conditions, or attitudes that foster stereotypes of social roles based on sex, specifically towards women. The word can be broken down, like the rest of the English language, into the Greek translation of to hate and women. While I do not believe that Andrew hates women, the fact of the matter is that he still holds up the other half of the definition of misogyny when he pushes the ideology that women should be mothers and women should be housewives and never mind their professional goals, and the main thing that makes them a high-quality woman is their looks. Andrew says that he is actually relieved and rather happy that this ban has come because now it has given him the opportunity to say the truth, and he doesn't think that he would have had everyone's attention, specifically his haters, otherwise. He says that should his social media platforms be reinstated, they will only be used to promote the Tate Foundation, which is his charity, and he will now be focusing on that from here on out. He wraps that final message up, hinting that this is just the beginning for Andrew Tate and that this cancellation was actually all part of his plan. So what could be next with him? We can only sit back and watch to see. But of course, the Hot Tea channel will be here to report and, to the best of our abilities, provide you with full context to take away and build your opinions from. Hop down into the comments. Maybe your mind changed a little bit on Andrew, maybe it worsened, or maybe it stayed the same. But that's actually going to be it for today's video, you guys. Thank you so much for watching. Don't forget to give this video a thumbs up if you enjoyed our little deep dive into the situation. And of course, if you're not subscribed, you're literally crazy and I'm calling the cops. Plus, if the notification bell isn't hit, then how are you going to know when we drop this heat? Follow our Instagram account for constant tea updates, and for now, enjoy some well-deserved eye bleach.